It's a surprise segment takeover on this episode of Locked On NFL Thursday. Tyler's nervous. I'm excited. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland, Locked On NFL Thursday. Let's roll, baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
On NFL Thursday, Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland. As always, we are here. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. You can listen to him 5 days a week, talking Tennessee Titans. You can listen to me 5 days a week, talking Arizona Cardinals on YouTube, free and available. Once again, no paywalls here, baby. You know what that does to me, Tyler. And I know I know what makes Tyler Rowland tick. We've been doing this for a year now. Okay. I know what makes him anxious. I know what makes him comfortable. And I know what makes him the most comfortable, if you listen every week, is he likes to know topics hours ahead of time, does his research, and that's not a bad thing, okay? Me coming from a different background of like, hey, you kind of go where it rolls in radio, I like to just come up with topics off the top of my head that has some sort of talking value. And today, Tyler gave me the ability to not tell him what we were talking about whatsoever on this show. But I will give Tyler now the three topics that we're going to talk about, okay? In the first segment, we're going to talk about this. If you were able to quarterback any team in the NFL, which team would you pick? Now, this is going into, do they have a good defense? Do they have a good run game? It's not just, oh, cool, who has the best wide receivers? If you could be the quarterback of any team in the NFL, who's it going to be? That's first segment. Second segment, who's going to be the best defense in the NFL in 2022? We talk offense all the time. We talk defensive pieces all the time. Who is going to be the best defensive unit in 2022? And finally, who's going to be the best RB1? Who's going to be the RB1 in 2022? We'll talk about that in the third segment. I've talked long enough. Tyler, if you could pick one team to be the quarterback for in 2022, who would it be?
This is a super tough question because there are a lot of really good supporting casts out there.
Stop stalling.
I just want to make sure I cover all my bases because everyone gets so mad when you don't pick their team. I got to tell you, I know this may sound crazy, but it might be the Cincinnati Bengals. It might be. With that trio of wide receivers with Chase and Boyd and Higgins, added Hayden Hurst at tight end. I like that fit as a receiving threat. You get to throw the ball to Joe Mixon out of the backfield. He can do it all as well. And I think they have significantly upgraded the offensive line. I mean, they bring in Liel Collins. They add that to Jonah Williams. That make additions on the interior offensive line as well. And I think with the improvements that they made on the offensive line, I'm not scared to die. I probably would if I was out there with the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. And the wide receivers were already incredibly tantalizing. Zach Taylor, while I don't think he's an incredible coach, he's a decent offensive mind as well. And you know that you're going to have a solid defense with solid pieces on the other side. And I'm an Ohio kid. I know what playing football and playing quarterback in Ohio can be like. I think with what we saw from the Bengals last year and the cast they got on offense and the improvements on the offensive line, I think it'd be pretty fun to be the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one. And I had two in mind. The one that was the honorable mention, we always like doing honorable mentions here, was the Dolphins. I mean, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they're going to be
a great time.
The next level. They've got 38 running backs. I think they've got 38 running backs. I mean, they've got all the running backs. They've got all the running backs. So the offensive line is improved. The defense is fine. But my answer is the Los Angeles Chargers, and it's not really close because of the improved upon defense, even more so now. Okay, because Austin Eckler has really, planted himself in a top 3 running back, especially for fantasy, dual threat. He may be the best, but it's the Chargers, so he doesn't really get all the run. Plus, they have a bunch of options. And then you have Keenan Allen, who I think is the most underrated receiver in football, maybe the best route runner. Mike Williams got all the cheese in all the land this offseason. And I think what they have there is a stable 1 through 22 starting lineup on both sides of the football. So I would take the Chargers. But like, I just think there's some sexiness to them with I think powder blue jerseys are the prettiest jerseys in all of professional sports, personally. Right. But so do you have any honorable mentions? Is there anybody that you want to hit?
I do. I have one honorable mention, and I try to go off the beaten path a little bit here. You know, obviously the teams with the top quarterbacks, if you put me in there and then maybe it worked. Well, not me personally, but, you know, we're talking about like a Disney Channel jersey type situation. 5'5" Tyler Rowland isn't going out there and playing. Well, if you did that, you'd have to switch me with Kyler Murray to make it realistic.
Stop it.
Moving forward, the Philadelphia Eagles. You got A.J. Brown. You got Devonta Smith. You got Dallas Goedert. You got Miles Sanders, Lane Johnson, Kelsey. They got a good offensive line. I like the defense of Philly, and I love Philadelphia's jerseys. I always have, whether it be the new darker green, whether it be the OG Kelly green. I think the Eagles look sweet out on the field. Philly is a tough place, but I like that kind of environment, baby. So put me as a quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that could be a pretty fun team to play on in a pretty fun city if you're playing well. So that would be my honorable mention, trying to go off the beaten path here just a little bit. I like the Eagles. I think that would be a fun time along with the Bengals.
He's Tyler Rowland, Locked On Titans, Monday through Friday, 30 minutes. He goes a lot deeper into film than I do. He has a very, very good approach on a team, and he's not afraid to say things that piss people off. Neither am I. Locked On Cardinals, 5 days a week, free and available on our platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast for both podcasts. Coming up next, the best defense in the NFL in 2022 will be. We'll talk about it. Whether this sponsor was with us early on, very early on, and they've come back. BlueNile.com. Okay? Blue Nile. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Like, the cool part about this, and this is like, we've got talking points. I go to this point every single time. They've got 24/7 chat help via phone or messenger for guys that have no idea what the hell they're doing, or women who have no idea what the hell they're doing. BlueNile.com. They've got that level of service that will keep you from looking like a complete nincompoop. Okay? So what we do here is we hook people up. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings, and that's use promo code Locked On. Okay, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today.
All right, Alex, we're going to continue this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, the Alex Clancy Takeover edition. We are spinning the Alex mystery wheel here and seeing what kind of topics come out. We just talked about teams we would like to play quarterback for, but now we got to change the conversation and hit another talking point that I think should be fun. Who will be the number one defense in the NFL in 2022? Before we get into that, I got to thank you guys for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen every day. Make sure you subscribe on all platforms. It's free and available on all podcast outlets. Also, we have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards to take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And thank you for your help. But with that being said, going to get into this discussion. about who will be the best defense in 2022. And Alex, I got to tell you, there's one team that really stood out to me. And the way that I kind of tried to look at the topic that you threw on me about 8 minutes ago is which team added some pieces to what I think is already good talent. And where I had to start was the Los Angeles Chargers. I like what the Chargers had on defense. I like that they added Asante Samuel Jr. last year as a slot cornerback. So I really like what they're doing there. Obviously, they had Joey Bosa. I believe in Brandon Staley as a defensive coach. Sebastian Joseph Day gets in there as well, which should really help the run defense, but we got to hit the big ones. The guy you talked about last week is potentially being one of the most forgotten best players in the NFL, Khalil Mack. To add Khalil Mack to Joey Bosa as your tandem, something that you had mentioned previously, I think that's great. You get Derwin James, again, getting healthier, getting back into form, and then you add J.C. Jackson on the outside as your number one corner. I just really like the defensive talent that they have in Los Angeles with the Chargers. I like Brandon Staley as a defensive coach. If they can stop the run and be better on third downs, which I think these additions will allow them to do, I think that the Chargers could be the best defense in the NFL next year.
Ditto.
Oh, I'm glad I was able to steal it from you.
Yeah, well, because look at this. So this is what this is by Tom Telesco is a masterclass in building around a young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It is a masterclass. It is a 2022 version of what Seattle did through the draft with Russell Wilson. They constructed the best defense that we'd seen, like that cluster. It was a mini dynasty of defense, the Legion of Boom. Okay, their offensive line was terrible. After they traded Max Unger, it was downhill when they traded for Jimmy Graham. But it was Bobby Wagner, it was Cam, it was Earl, and it was Richard. And it's like, that's all you need. And what they've done here with the Chargers is, obviously there's a higher salary cap now. J.C. Jackson got paid a lot of money. Khalil Mack, if you would have told me 3 years ago that Khalil Mack would have gone for a second and a sixth?
Second and
something
sixth,
like that. It's like, what are we doing here, guys? and this now, they have the added leverage of having Joey Bosa already. So Khalil Mack isn't going to get doubled like he used to. So yeah, I mirror everything that you said. And this, I wasn't setting these surprise topics up to be Charger heavy, but they just ended up being that. Because 1 to 22, that's the best roster in football. In my opinion, on paper, it's the best roster in football, especially if Justin Herbert's going to take the next step. Now, the only honorable mention I had was it's always going to be the Steelers, just because their defense is always there. Okay, with Devin Bush hopefully being fully healthy, then they had T.J. Watt, Defensive Player of the Year. It doesn't matter who's in their secondary. It doesn't matter. They resurrected Joe Hayden's. It doesn't matter. I'm taking the Steelers, regardless of how good the AFC North has become. I'm still taking the Steelers as a plug-and-play fantasy starting defense and a plug-and-play. They could ruin your Sunday defense.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason why they were able to be competitive last year. And I think you're right. The way that Pittsburgh plays up front makes it easier, I will say, on the secondary. And then you have a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick who can make plays back there. I mean, it's a recipe for a number one defense. I definitely think that's possible. I also have one honorable mention or a second nominee here. I feel like it's not as big of a swing as the Chargers. It's kind of low-hanging fruit, but it has to be mentioned. The Buffalo Bills. I mean, last year, before Tre'Davious White got hurt, they were amazing. Hopefully they get Tre'Davious White back and healthy because he's a fantastic player to watch. They add Von Miller, which is kind of a similar situation to a Khalil Mack, where you have an already talented group of guys on defense and you add a top-tier pass rusher. So you add Von Miller to that to go along with Gregory Rousseau. They add Daquan Jones in the middle, a former Titan who should be able to help with run defense. They added Kyer Elam to play that other corner to fill Levi Wallace's spot with the two safeties they have, and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. I mean, I just think they have a very, very solid group. They might have the most talented defense on paper in the NFL when they're all healthy, and with the coaching that you're going to get from Sean McDermott. I just don't think that I don't think we could pass through this section completely without mentioning the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. Well, one quick thing before we go to break here. They are the Chargers East.
Right.
You know, they're built almost exactly the same as the Chargers. So you're right. I mean, that's an interesting point. Maybe the Bills I just think Austin Eckler's better than all the running backs that the Bills have. And I think they utilize the running back obviously exorbitantly better than the Bills do. We'll see if that changes in 2022.
Well, with that being said, we are going to move forward. We got another fun topic to just discuss, dive into all the potential candidates who could fill that role. We're going to talk about who's going to be the number one running back in yardage next year. Before we get into that, I do want to tell you guys about rockauto.com. Rockauto.com is an online company that's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They're going to have everything that you could ever want on their easy to navigate, easy to sort through catalog. They got brake parts and tail lamps, motor oil, even brand new carpet if that's what you need. So make sure that you go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck. And when you make your purchase, make sure that you write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box. It's right underneath the shipping information, and let them know that Locked On sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
All right, final segment, Locked On NFL Thursday. It was a choose your own adventure by me without the knowledge of Tyler, because I like teasing and making Tyler anxiety ridden in fun ways only. Of course, follow him at Tic Tac Titans. Listen to him every day on Locked On Titans, free and available on all platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Otherwise, you can listen to me for all the Cardinals information. You can stomach Monday through Friday Locked On Cardinals YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcast. So we've hit a bunch of fun stuff today. Which quarterback would you rather? Which team would you like to quarterback if you could quarterback a team in 2022? What's the best defense going to be at the end of 2022? And then this one, let's do this because we have to now. Total yards gained. Like, do we do it in fantasy football numbers? Like, because
I think that would be
rushing.
Fair.
Yeah,
like
if
we're looking for
yards,
the most productive running. Yeah, it doesn't really accurately paint the picture of what a good running back is supposed to be. So I would say total running back yardage with the rushing yards and then with the receiving yards added in. I think that would be a fair way to break it down.
Are we going to talk? Let's do half point PPR so we can split. So we can split the difference. Okay, split the odds. Okay. I go first. Okay, because I need to muck this up a little bit because. I'm going to explain why in a second.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so for me, looking at all the running backs available, I'm going to go with a guy who finished third in rushing yards last year, had some injuries throughout the season, but I think this year his team is going to be in a position to get the ball to him, maybe not more, but in more efficient situations. He's maybe going to be a little bit more explosive than he was last year because of the improvements. And it's a team that I mentioned earlier, the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon. I think Joe Mixon has a great chance to be RB1 from a fantasy perspective, especially if it's half point PPR instead of full point PPR, because I think there are guys who will have more catches, like an Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler, guys like that. But I think Joe Mixon is still a great receiving option out of the backfield, one of the better receiving backs in the league last year. If you look at the top backs in the NFL, Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, all of them had a higher yards per carry. Oh, well, besides Najee Harris, but all of them had a higher yards per carry. I mean, you look at Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor, they're at 5.5 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook's at 4.7. Joe Mixon was at 4.1. And that was with a much worse offensive line. And I think the Bengals aren't going to be in as many close games this year because they're going to be a better team. So I think they're going to have their foot on people's necks earlier in games, which will lead the Bengals to run the ball more and rely on their offensive line more with the improvements. So I think Joe Mixon is a guy who has a chance to finish as RB1 if he is able to, if all of that's able to play out in Cincinnati. Basically, I think he's got a great chance to be the number one fantasy back in a half point PPR.
He's never put it all together for a full season. You know, he's a guy, he's like a Matthew.
Then he's due.
Yeah, right. Well, and obviously they've gotten a better offense than it since he used to be the offense. And then, you know, Giovanni Bernard took a large chunk of third down plays to him, which ended up being, big gainers and touchdowns and such.
Which obviously isn't a concern anymore,
Right.
and they passed the ball more to him last year. So I like what Joe Mixon could be. I think he's definitely a top 5 or 6 pick in a fantasy draft, maybe 8 at max.
I'm gonna go for the sweep. Austin Eckler.
Okay.
So and it's for really we've been. I mean, to be simpatico on this, or we didn't have the topics until 2 seconds before. I feel like because they have so many options, because the defense is better, like you're going to see Austin Eckler running the ball a little bit more. Justin Jackson's not there anymore. Josh Kelly hasn't proven anything. I know, didn't they drafted Isaiah Spiller. A&M.
Yep.
But Austin Eckler is a special back because it's hard to be injury prone and then not. And he's made this James Conner, my back is going to be stronger than a house transformation into a lead back, and it used to be Melvin Gordon, who was the guy that was going to be the workhorse. Then Austin Eckler was going to be the third down guy. And he just said, the Chargers said, they don't need Melvin Gordon anymore. I mean, Austin Eckler was going to be the guy. He is, when healthy, the biggest threat on a football field from the running back position, in my opinion, because you can use him in so many different ways. And on top of all of this, not all running backs have a nose for the end zone. Not all players have a nose for the end zone, know how to get in the end zone. And he does. And they use him in so many different ways. And I feel like he's going to touch the ball a lot, but not to the point where he gets Arian Fostered, like I mentioned. He's not going to touch the ball 400 times, but he's so efficient with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's worth 5-6 yards every time he touches the ball. So I'm going to say Austin Eckler, double-digit touchdowns per usual. Maybe 1,000, 1,200 yards rushing, 800. Like, if he gets 2,000 yards in any season, you're not going to be shocked. So I'm going to say Austin Eckler. And with the Chargers sweep.
My honorable mention is going to stay kind of on those grounds. You look at a guy like Alvin Kamara, who kind of had a down year last year, but, I mean, the Saints had Trevor Siemian at quarterback for some time. I know their offensive line, you can't say that it's improved. It most certainly is not. But I think with Jameis Winston, they could be a more competitive team, which will keep games closer, and they'll have to manufacture more opportunities for Alvin Kamara. All you have behind him right now is Mark Ingram, who looked almost cooked for some of last year. Tony Jones, Dwayne Washington. I'm still, I'm still on the train of thinking that the Saints, with their defense, with Winston healthy, I think they could be a playoff contender for one of those wild card spots in the NFC. If the Saints are a competitive team that are in competitive games, it's because they got the ball to Alvin Kamara a ton. He catches the ball, he runs the ball. So a guy like Austin Eckler, you say Austin. Honestly, I think Kamara is a better version of Austin Eckler talent wise. So I'm on that line, similar type of style there. I think I'll go with Alvin Kamara as my honorable mention behind Joe Mixon.
He is Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans. I am Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. You did a good job, buddy. No sweats. The only sweats you should be worried about are the meat sweats. Okay.
Other than it being 90 degrees right now in my office, having no ventilation. But yes, meat sweats, which will come with dinner later.
Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland, Locked on NFL Thursday. We'll talk to you next week.